Hi. You read about this kind of stuff happening to other people, but when it happens to you, it's like the ground gets ripped out from under you, and you're left free-falling, waiting to hit rock bottom. Let me introduce myself. I'm Matt, 42 years old, father of two boys, 17 and 14, and my daughter, Julie, 19. I've been married to my wife, Emily, for 21 years. Or at least, I thought I was. Turns out, I've been married to a lie. Emily and I had what looked like the perfect marriage from the outside. High school sweethearts, built a life together, raised a family, had a house with the white picket fence, literally. But now, I realize I ignored so many red flags along the way. It started subtly. Over the past few months, Emily had been working later than usual. She got promoted, and suddenly, her boss, Michael, needed her at all hours. Late-night meetings, weekend team-building trips, work dinners. I told myself it made sense. After all, we had bills to pay, kids in school, and we weren't struggling, but we weren't rolling in money either. But then, it wasn't just the work trips. It was the way she acted at home. The way she avoided eye contact when I asked how her day was. The way she put her phone face down and kept it glued to her side like a damn limb. The way she suddenly started taking more time with her appearance before heading to work. I ignored it. I wanted to ignore it. Because if I acknowledged it, then I had to do something about it. Then, a few nights ago, she dropped the bomb. She told me she had to go on another business trip, this time, a full week away, with, you guessed it, Michael. And that's when everything unraveled. When Emily told me about the business trip, something inside me snapped. It wasn't rage, not yet. It was something worse, certainty. I had spent months brushing aside the doubts, rationalizing every suspicious behavior. Maybe I was just being insecure. Maybe I was imagining things. But in that moment, when she casually mentioned she'd be gone for an entire week with her boss, I knew. I played it cool. I asked a few questions, like where they were going and who else was coming along. She barely hesitated. Said it was a conference in Miami, that some other colleagues would be there, and that she had to go because it was important for her position. I nodded, smiled even. That makes sense, I said, and kissed her on the forehead. She smiled back, relieved that I didn't question it further. But inside, I felt sick. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emily laughing with Michael, touching his arm, sneaking off to a hotel room while I was at home playing the fool. I wanted to shake her awake, demand the truth, but I knew that if she hadn't confessed by now, she never would. The confirmation came the next evening, from the last person I expected. I was putting away dishes when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I wouldn't pick up, but something told me to answer. Hello. Hi, is this Matt? The voice was soft but uncertain. Yeah, who's this? There was a long pause. Then, finally. My name is Louise. I'm Michael's wife. I gripped the phone tighter. Okay. She took a deep breath. Look, I don't know how to say this, but I think your wife is having an affair with my husband. My heart slammed against my ribs. I walked out of the kitchen and into the garage, where I could be alone. Why do you think that? I asked, my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. She hesitated, then sighed. Because I found messages. Texts. Photos. They've been meeting up at hotels. And, this business trip they're going on. There's no conference, Matt. It's just them. The air felt like it had been sucked out of my lungs. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you, she continued. But I thought you deserved to know. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Do you have proof? Another pause. Then, a soft ping. She had just sent me a screenshot. I opened it, and my stomach turned. There it was, Emily's name in a string of flirty texts with Michael. A picture of her in lingerie, a message saying she couldn't wait for their alone time, in Miami. My hands clenched into fists. Louise kept talking, her voice shaking now. I don't know what to do. I thought we had a good marriage. I don't even know who he is anymore. I exhaled sharply, trying to push down the rising anger. I know exactly how you feel. And I did. Because at that moment, I wasn't just some guy who had suspicions. I wasn't a paranoid husband grasping at straws. I was a man who had just been proven right. And that was the worst fucking part. I wish I could say I lost it right then and there. That I stormed into the house, shoved my phone in Emily's face, and demanded answers. But I didn't. Instead, I stood there in the garage, gripping my phone so hard my knuckles turned white, staring at the proof of my wife's betrayal. Louise was still on the line, waiting for me to say something. Are you okay? She asked softly. I almost laughed at the question. Was I okay? No. I was the opposite of okay. But somehow, I found the strength to keep my voice steady. I will be, I said. Another pause. Then, she whispered, what are you going to do? I didn't have an answer. We exchanged a few more words, her telling me she'd keep me updated if she found anything else, me thanking her for telling me the truth. And then the call ended. I stood there for what felt like hours, my mind racing. I wanted to barge into the house and scream at Emily. Demand to know how long she had been lying to me. Ask her if she ever felt guilty kissing me goodnight after being in another man's bed. But I knew if I confronted her now, she'd lie. She'd cry, make excuses, twist things around. No, I needed a plan. I walked back inside, my face neutral, my emotions locked away. Emily was in the living room, scrolling through her phone. When she saw me, she smiled like nothing had changed. Hey, babe, she said. You okay? I forced a smile. Yeah. Just tired. She nodded, completely unaware that I knew everything. That I had just seen messages meant for another man. That I was already planning how to destroy the world she had built on lies. I went upstairs and knocked on Julie's door. Come in. I stepped inside and found her sitting cross-legged on her bed, earbuds in, scrolling through her laptop. She glanced up, immediately sensing something was wrong. What's up, Dad? I hesitated. How the hell was I supposed to tell my daughter that her mother was cheating? That the life she thought she had was a lie? I sat on the edge of her bed and took a deep breath. Julie, there's something I need to tell you. She closed her laptop and sat up straight, her face serious. What is it? I looked at her, my little girl who had grown up too fast, and I hated that I was about to take away a piece of her innocence. Your mom, she's having an affair. Silence. Julie blinked once. Twice. Then, she let out a short laugh, sharp, bitter. You're joking, right? I shook my head. I wish I was. She searched my face for any sign that this was some sick prank. When she found none, she sucked in a shaky breath. How do you know? I told her everything. The late nights, the secrecy, the phone calls. And finally, the message from Louise. Julie's face twisted with anger. That bitch. I flinched at the word, but I couldn't blame her. She's going on a business trip with him next week, I added. Julie clenched her fists. Are you gonna confront her? I exhaled slowly. Not yet. Her eyebrows shot up. What? Why the hell not? Because she'll just lie. I want her to dig herself in deeper. I want to make sure she can't weasel her way out of this. Julie stared at me for a long moment, then nodded. Okay. So what do we do? I looked at my daughter, the only one I could truly trust right now, and gave her a grim smile. "We wait," I said. And just like that, the war had begun. Waiting was the hardest part. After my conversation with Julie, I felt an overwhelming urge to do something. To call Emily out, to shove the evidence in her face, to make her see that I wasn't an idiot. But I had to be smart. I couldn't let my emotions control me. So, for the next few days, I played my role. I acted like the clueless husband, kissed Emily goodbye in the mornings, asked about her day, laughed at her forced smiles. I even helped her pack for her damn business trip. "Are you sure you don't need another dress?" I asked as she folded a sleek black number into her suitcase. She smiled. "Nah, I'll mostly be in meetings. It's not like I'm going out clubbing or anything." I wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled back and kissed her on the cheek. The night before she left, I lay in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling while she slept soundly. How did she do it? How did she kiss me goodnight knowing she was about to spend a week in another man's arms? I wanted to shake her awake, ask her who the hell she had become. But I didn't. Because I had a plan. The morning she left, Julie and I watched from the kitchen window as she threw her suitcase into the trunk and pulled out of the driveway. I expected Julie to be furious. Instead, she was eerily calm, sipping her coffee like we were discussing the weather. "She's really doing it," she muttered. "Lying to our faces and just going." I nodded, gripping my mug so hard my knuckles turned white. "She doesn't know we know," I said. "That's our advantage." Julie turned to me, eyes sharp. "What's the plan?" I exhaled slowly. "We're not confronting her yet. We're leaving." Julie's brows shot up. "Leaving?" I nodded. "We pack up and move out while she's gone. She comes home to an empty house." For the first time in days, a smile spread across Julie's face. "Oh, that's cold," she said, and for once, she actually looked amused. I smirked. "I think she deserves it." Julie set down her coffee. "Damn right she does." That day, we got to work. I contacted a lawyer first thing in the morning. I needed to know my rights, what steps I had to take to make sure I didn't get screwed over in the divorce. Because there was no question about it, Emily and I were done. Julie took the lead in packing her things. She was quick, efficient, barely blinking as she tossed clothes into a suitcase. But I could see it in her eyes, the anger, the betrayal. As for my sons, I decided not to tell them yet. They were younger, still attached to their mother. I needed to figure out the best way to break the news without shattering them completely. By the end of the day, we had most of our things packed. I arranged for a moving truck, set up a new place, made sure Emily would have no clue where we went. Then, Julie and I sat down and wrote the note. We kept it simple. "Emily, you lied. You cheated. And now you get to live with the consequences. We're gone." Julie smirked as she slid the paper onto the empty dining table. "She's gonna lose her shit when she sees this," she said. I sighed, rubbing a hand down my face. "She deserves to." Julie looked at me for a long moment. "Are you okay?" I thought about it. About how my marriage had just collapsed, about how the woman I had spent 20 years with had betrayed me in the worst possible way. And then I thought about what was ahead, freedom. For the first time in a long time, I took a deep breath and felt light. "Yeah," I said. "I think I am." There was no turning back now. The house was empty. Every picture frame that once held memories of our so-called happy family was gone. The closets were bare. The boys' rooms looked untouched, but everything that belonged to Julie and me had disappeared like we had never lived there. All that remained was the note. I had arranged for us to stay in a rental house on the other side of town, far enough that Emily wouldn't be able to find us immediately, close enough that I could still handle things with the lawyer. The boys were still with a friend, unaware of the storm about to hit. I needed to be the one to tell them, not their mother. And then, we waited. I don't know what I expected when Emily walked through that door. Maybe I thought she'd call me instantly, screaming. Maybe she'd break down in tears, realizing just how badly she had screwed up. What I didn't expect was the absolute radio silence. Hours passed. Then a full night. Then another morning. No texts. No calls. Julie checked the security cameras we had left behind in the house, ones she had set up long ago, mostly to keep an eye on the dogs. Now, they served a different purpose. It wasn't until the next evening that she finally showed up. Julie and I sat side by side on the couch, watching the footage in real time. Emily pulled into the driveway, tired from her business trip. She dragged her suitcase inside, oblivious. Then, she stopped. She looked around the house, confused at first. She called out, probably expecting me or the kids to greet her. No answer. She walked into the kitchen, and we saw the exact moment she spotted the note. Her body stiffened. She picked it up, read it, and for a long time, she just stood there. I could see her chest rising and falling, her breathing quickening. And then, her hands started shaking. Julie let out a low whistle. Oh, she felt that one. Emily dropped the note on the counter and scrambled for her phone. We both stared at my screen, waiting for the call to come through. And then, there it was. The name Emily flashed across my screen. I exhaled, steadied myself, and answered. Hello. There was a pause. When she finally spoke, her voice was shaking. Matt, where are you? I leaned back into the couch, keeping my tone neutral. Somewhere you're not. A sharp breath. Then, her voice cracked. What the hell is this? Where is everyone? I glanced at Julie, who smirked, arms crossed. I kept my voice steady. We're gone, Emily. Silence. Then, you left me. I let out a dry chuckle. What did you think was going to happen? You disappear for a week to screw your boss, and I just wait here like a good little husband. She gasped. I don't know what you're talking about. Julie rolled her eyes so hard I thought they'd get stuck. I sighed, my patience running thin. Don't insult me, Emily. I know. I know everything. Michael's wife called me. She sent me the texts. The pictures. I know. More silence. Then, finally, a whisper, Matt, please, let's talk about this. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice, and now you get to live with it. A sob. She was crying now. I felt nothing. Where are the boys? She asked between sniffles. They're fine. They don't know yet. I'll tell them soon. Her breath hitched. Don't turn them against me. I clenched my jaw. Like you didn't turn yourself against them the moment you decided to betray this family? But I didn't say that. Instead, I let out a long breath. This isn't my problem anymore, Emily. She was full on crying now, gasping for air. Matt, please, don't do this. We can fix this. I made a mistake. I cut her off. No, Emily. You made choices. And now, I'm making mine. I could hear her trying to compose herself. I'll come find you. I smirked. Good luck with that. And then, I hung up. Julie let out a slow exhale. Damn, Dad. I tossed my phone onto the couch and ran a hand down my face. Yeah. She studied me. You okay? I thought about it. Then, I nodded. Yeah. For the first time in a long time, I actually was. Emily didn't give up easily. After I hung up on her, I expected a flood of texts, angry voicemails, desperate attempts to reel me back in. But what I got was even worse. Silence. She didn't call back. Didn't text. Nothing. Julie and I kept watching the security footage. After the call, Emily just stood there in the kitchen, gripping the counter, breathing like she was about to pass out. Then, suddenly, she snapped. She grabbed the note and crumpled it in her fist. Threw her phone across the room. Let out a scream that sent chills down my spine. Then, she started tearing through the house. She ran upstairs, checking our bedroom, then the kids' rooms. Each empty closet, each missing piece of furniture sent her spiraling further. She started slamming doors, pulling open drawers as if she'd magically find us hiding inside. Julie smirked as we watched. She looks like one of those crazy exes from a Lifetime movie. I didn't respond. I was too busy waiting for what came next. And then, right on cue, she grabbed her phone. Michael. We watched as she scrolled through her contacts, then hit dial. The moment he picked up, she launched into a panicked rant. We couldn't hear the words, but we didn't need to. Her face said it all. She was losing control. Michael must have said something she didn't like, because her face twisted in frustration. She shouted into the phone, paced the kitchen, waved her arms like a lunatic. Then, finally, she slammed her finger on the screen and ended the call. Julie raised an eyebrow. Trouble in paradise? I sighed. Looks like it. And then, Emily made her next move. She grabbed her keys, stormed out of the house, and sped off down the street. Julie leaned forward. Where do you think she's going? I already knew. She's going to find the boys. I called my sons before she could get to them. They were still at their friend's house, completely unaware of what was happening. I kept my voice calm, told them I needed to pick them up, that we had something important to talk about. They were confused but agreed. By the time Emily got to their friend's house, I had already picked them up and driven off. The text started rolling in almost immediately. Emily, where are the boys? Emily, you cannot take them from me, Matt. Emily, you're being completely irrational. Just come home so we can talk about this. Emily, you're scaring them. Emily, at least tell me where they are. Please. I ignored every single one. The drive was quiet. My son sat in the back seat, exchanging confused glances. Finally, my 17-year-old, Ethan, cleared his throat. Dad, what's going on? I gripped the wheel. We need to talk. We sat them down in the new house. Julie sat with me, her arms crossed, her jaw set. I took a deep breath and looked at my sons. There's no easy way to say this, I said. Your mother, she's been having an affair. Silence. My 14-year-old, Ryan, frowned. Wait, what? I nodded. She cheated. With her boss. Ethan stiffened. That's not possible. Julie scoffed. Oh, it's very possible. I kept my voice steady. I have proof. Texts. Photos. Ethan's face darkened. Ryan's lip trembled. No, Ryan whispered. Mom wouldn't do that. I exhaled slowly. I wish that were true. Tears welled up in Ryan's eyes. Ethan clenched his jaw, his whole body stiff. Finally, Ethan spoke. So what now? I hesitated. That's up to you. They both stared at me. I'm not going to force you to do anything, I said. If you want to go back to her, I won't stop you. But I won't live with her anymore. Ryan wiped his face. She doesn't even know where we are. No. Ethan let out a slow breath. Good. Julie gave a satisfied nod. Ryan, on the other hand, still looked lost. I don't get it. Why would she do this? I wished I had an answer. Instead, I just shook my head. I don't know, Bud. But it's not our problem anymore. Ryan didn't say anything else. He just curled up on the couch, hugging his knees. Ethan, meanwhile, looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. So you're really done with her? He asked. I nodded. Yeah. I am. He stared at me for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. Good. Emily lost her mind. The moment she realized I had taken the boys and cut her off, she went nuclear. My phone blew up with missed calls and frantic texts. At first, it was all fake concern. Emily, Matt, please, let's talk about this like adults. Emily, the boys need both of us. This isn't fair to them. Emily, I love you. I love our family. Don't throw this away over one mistake. When I didn't respond, the mask slipped. Emily, you're being cruel. You're manipulating our children. You're a coward for leaving without even giving me a chance to explain. Emily, you think you're punishing me? You're only hurting the boys. Emily, how dare you take them without my permission? I have rights, Matt. You better believe I'll fight for them. Julie read over my shoulder and scoffed. She's really trying to play the victim, huh? I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. Let her. Julie smirked. She's not gonna like what happens next. Because while Emily was spiraling, I was taking action. The first call I made was to my lawyer. I told him everything, her infidelity, the abandonment of our family, the evidence I had. He assured me that with the proof I'd collected, the court would favor me in custody proceedings. But she's their mother, I said. I don't want to take the boys away from her completely. They should have the choice. He agreed but warned me, if she thinks she's losing, she might go scorched earth. Be prepared for anything. The second call was to Louise. She picked up on the first ring. Matt? Hey, I said. Just thought you should know, Emily knows we're gone. She let out a low breath. And? She's unraveling. Louise was quiet for a moment. Then, she sighed. Michael is, too. I sat up straighter. Oh. He came home last night drunk out of his mind, she said. I think he thought I'd just be waiting here, ready to forgive him. I frowned. And? I told him to get the hell out, she said. I filed for divorce this morning. I blinked. Damn. That was fast. Louise let out a small laugh. Why wait? He made his choice, and now he gets to live with it. I couldn't help but smile. Glad to see I'm not the only one making moves. She hesitated. How are the boys? I glanced over at them. Ethan was playing a video game, his expression tight with concentration. Ryan was on his phone, scrolling aimlessly, looking more exhausted than anything. They're adjusting, I said. Louise was quiet for a moment. If they ever need someone to talk to, my girls have been through this, too. They know what it's like. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. I'll keep that in mind. Hang in there, Matt, she said softly. This is just the beginning. I knew she was right. The war wasn't over yet. Emily wasn't done fighting. After a full day of silence, I hoped, she'd finally accepted that I wasn't coming back. That she'd recognize the damage she had done and at least attempt to move forward with some dignity. But no. She escalated. It started with the calls, this time, not just to me, but to the boys. Ethan ignored them completely, his jaw tightening every time her name popped up on his screen. Ryan, on the other hand, hesitated. He stared at his phone, chewing his lip, torn between anger and guilt. I could see it in his face. "She's your mom," I said softly. "If you want to talk to her, I won't stop you." Ryan met my eyes, searching for something, maybe permission, maybe reassurance. Then, finally, he answered. "Hello." Julie and I sat silently as we watched him. Ethan didn't even pretend to be interested, he just kept playing his game, expression cold. Ryan barely said anything. Most of the call was Emily sobbing, pleading, trying to spin the situation in her favor. I couldn't hear her words, but I could hear the desperation in her voice. Ryan finally muttered, "I don't know," then hung up. He sat there for a moment, staring at the screen, his face pale. "What did she say?" I asked. Ryan swallowed. She said she's sorry. That she messed up. That she still loves us." Julie scoffed. "Oh, now she loves us. Convenient." Ryan shot her a glare. "It's not that simple." Ethan suddenly paused his game and turned around, his voice sharp. "It is that simple, Ryan. She cheated. She threw away our family. And now she's crying because she finally has to deal with the consequences." Ryan clenched his jaw. "She's still our mom." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Yeah. Then why didn't she think about that before she was screwing her boss?" Ryan flinched. His hands curled into fists. For a moment, I thought he was going to say something, defend her, maybe. But instead, he just stormed off to his room and slammed the door. I let out a slow breath. "That went well." Julie shook her head. "He'll come around. He just needs time." Ethan's expression darkened. "Mom's not done. You know that, right?" I nodded. "Yeah. I know." And sure enough, he was right. Because later that night, Emily made her next move. She showed up at the house. I heard the knock first. It was after 9 p.m. I wasn't expecting anyone. I checked the camera. There she was, standing at the door, eyes red, clutching her phone like it was her lifeline. Julie peeked over my shoulder. "Oh, hell no." I sighed. "Stay here." I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. Emily's breath hitched when she saw me. "Matt." I crossed my arms. "You shouldn't be here." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Please. Just, let's talk. Face to face." I clenched my jaw. "Talk about what?" "About how you threw away our marriage. About how you lied to me for months." She shook her head rapidly. "No, it wasn't like that. I swear, I didn't mean to hurt you. It was a mistake." I let out a cold laugh. "A mistake? Emily, a mistake is forgetting to pay a bill. A mistake is burning dinner. You made a choice. Over and over again." Her face crumbled. "I love you, Matt. I never stopped loving you." I shook my head. "You don't do what you did to someone you love." Her hands trembled. I cut her off. "Do the boys know you're here?" She swallowed hard. I wanted to see them." I exhaled sharply. "Ryan isn't ready. Ethan doesn't want to see you. You need to give them space." Her lip quivered. "I don't want to lose them." I met her eyes, my voice steady. "You already did." Her whole body tensed, like I had physically struck her. She stared at me for a long moment, searching for something, maybe hope, maybe weakness. But I had nothing left to give her. Finally, she wiped her face, sniffled, and nodded. "Okay." Then, she turned and walked back to her car. No screaming. No last-ditch effort to manipulate me. Just quiet resignation. I waited until she was gone before going back inside. Julie and Ethan were watching me. Julie raised an eyebrow. That looked brutal. I ran a hand through my hair. Yeah. Ethan leaned back in his chair. Do you think she finally gets it? I let out a slow breath. She gets it. But I wasn't sure it would change anything. Emily finally understood that she had lost me. But losing the boys? That was a different story. She wasn't going to let that go without a fight. A few days after her late-night visit, my lawyer called me. She filed for temporary custody, he said. I gritted my teeth. Are you kidding me? I wish I was, he sighed. She's claiming you took the children without her consent and are alienating them from her. I let out a humorless laugh. She alienated herself when she decided to screw around behind our backs. I agree, he said. But in family court, perception matters. We need to be smart about this. I ran a hand down my face. What do I need to do? We'll respond immediately, he assured me. We have evidence of her infidelity, abandonment, and the fact that she voluntarily left the kids in your care for an extended period without contesting it, until now. Judges don't like it when parents suddenly become concerned after they've been caught. I exhaled. What are the chances she actually wins this? Low, he said. But she might be granted visitation, and if she plays her cards right, she could push for shared custody. My stomach twisted. I wasn't trying to take the kids from her. I wasn't manipulating them. I just wanted them to be happy, to make their own choices. And right now, they didn't want to see her. That should have been enough. That evening, I sat the boys down again. Ryan had barely spoken about what happened. He went about his days in a daze, quiet, withdrawn, like he was trying to pretend everything was normal. Ethan, on the other hand, had made up his mind from the start. He didn't hate his mom, but he wanted nothing to do with her. Julie sat with us, arms crossed, eyes sharp. She was fully on my side, but she also knew this was a delicate situation. She's trying to get custody, I told them. That doesn't mean she'll win, but you need to know what's happening. Ethan scoffed. Figures. Ryan frowned, his fingers fidgeting in his lap. She just wants to see us. Julie rolled her eyes. Oh, come on, Ryan. If she wanted to see us so bad, why didn't she think of that before she blew up our family? Ryan flinched. She's still our mom. And? Ethan snapped. That doesn't mean she gets to treat us like a backup plan. Ryan's face flushed red. I don't know. I miss her. Silence. I sighed, rubbing my temples. Listen, I'm not telling you that you can't see her. If you want to talk to her, you can. But I need to know what you want. Not what she's telling you to feel. Not what I feel. What you want. Ryan swallowed. I don't know. Ethan exhaled sharply. I do. I don't want to see her. Ryan looked down, biting his lip. Julie spoke up. Look, no one's forcing you to choose forever. If you want to talk to her, fine. But don't let her guilt trip you into forgetting what she did. Ryan nodded slowly but didn't say anything else. The conversation ended with no real resolution. But one thing was clear, Emily wasn't giving up. And now, the battle was moving to the courts. Emily wanted a fight. So, I gave her one. The first court hearing came faster than I expected. My lawyer worked quickly, filing our response, outlining her infidelity, abandonment, and the fact that I had been the sole caretaker for the boys while she was off playing house with her boss. Emily, of course, played the heartbroken mother card. She showed up looking like a wreck, minimal makeup, her hair pulled back like she hadn't slept in days. It was an act. A carefully curated look designed to scream I'm the victim here. The judge, however, wasn't stupid. She listened as Emily's lawyer made his case. Your Honor, my client acknowledges that mistakes were made in her marriage. However, that does not mean she should be denied her rights as a mother. Mr. Carter, he gestured toward me, has removed the children from their home without a proper custody agreement. He has deliberately cut off my client's access to her children, which is emotional manipulation, plain and simple. I clenched my jaw. Then, my lawyer stood. With all due respect, Your Honor, that is simply not true. My client did not remove the children. Mrs. Carter voluntarily left them behind while engaging in an extramarital affair. She made no effort to see them until after she was caught. Now, she is attempting to paint herself as a concerned mother only after the consequences of her actions became real. The judge turned to me. Mr. Carter, do your sons want to see their mother? I took a deep breath. My oldest son, Ethan, does not. He has made that decision very clear. My younger son, Ryan, is struggling. He's hurt, and he's confused. I'm not keeping him from his mother, but I am protecting him from being emotionally manipulated while he processes what's happened. Emily made a choked sob. I resisted the urge to roll my eyes. The judge considered both sides, tapping her pen against the desk. At their age, the boys' wishes hold weight in this case. That said, I will not cut off parental access entirely. My stomach tightened. I am granting temporary primary custody to Mr. Carter, as he has been their primary caretaker in recent weeks. Mrs. Carter will be granted supervised visitation with Ryan twice a month, pending further review. Given Ethan's age, he may decide for himself whether or not he wishes to participate in visitations. Emily gasped. Supervised. The judge's expression was firm. Your recent actions have shown a lapse in judgment, Mrs. Carter. This is not a punishment, it is a precaution to ensure a smooth transition for the children. Emily's jaw clenched, her hands gripping the table. I exhaled, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. It wasn't a total victory, but it was a clear sign. She wasn't going to manipulate her way out of this. After the hearing, Emily tried to corner me in the hallway. This isn't fair, Matt, she hissed, her voice low. You're turning them against me. I met her gaze, calm and steady. You did that all on your own. Her nostrils flared. I will fix this. I shook my head. You can't fix something you already broke. She stared at me for a long moment, then turned and stormed away. Julie, who had been waiting outside, smirked as she watched her go. That went well. I let out a breath. For now. Because this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Emily wasn't done. The moment the judge ruled in my favor, I could see it in her eyes, that desperate need to regain control. She hated losing, and now that she realized she couldn't win in court, she tried a different tactic. She played the guilt card. Her first supervised visit with Ryan was scheduled for the weekend. I didn't go, I didn't have to. The visits were held at a neutral location with a court-appointed supervisor, so I let Ryan go alone while Julie and Ethan stayed behind with me. When he came back, he was quiet. I gave him space, but Julie wasn't so patient. What did she say? She asked, leaning against the counter, arms crossed. Ryan shrugged, looking at the floor. I don't know. Just, that she misses us. That she's trying. Ethan scoffed. Trying what, exactly? Ryan's hands clenched into fists. I don't know, okay? It's not like I want to be mad at her. I sighed, stepping in before things escalated. No one's saying you have to be mad, Ryan. You're allowed to feel however you feel. Ryan's eyes flickered with uncertainty. She kept saying that you're making this worse. That if you weren't being so difficult, we could all be a family again. Julie groaned. Oh my God. Of course, she's blaming Dad. Ethan shook his head. Classic. Mom screws up, then makes it everyone else's fault. I kept my voice steady. What do you think, Ryan? Do you think I'm making this worse? Ryan hesitated, shifting uncomfortably. I don't know. I mean, she is sorry. Julie scoffed. Sorry she got caught. Ryan's eyes flashed with anger. Why do you even care? You don't even like her. Julie's expression darkened. Yeah, because unlike you, I don't buy her bullshit. Ryan shot up from his chair. She's still our mom. And she still cheated on Dad and lied to all of us for months. Julie snapped back. Ryan's face turned red. Enough, I said, my voice firm. Both of them fell silent. I turned to Ryan. Listen. I'm not going to tell you how to feel about your mother. That's up to you. But I will tell you this, she's trying to make herself the victim because she doesn't want to take responsibility for what she did. That's not fair to you, and it's sure as hell not fair to me. Ryan swallowed, looking down. I don't know what to think anymore. I placed a hand on his shoulder. You don't have to decide today. Just remember, you don't owe her anything. Love isn't about guilt. It's about trust. Ryan nodded slowly, but I could tell he was still struggling. Emily still had her hooks in him, even if he didn't realize it. And I knew she wasn't going to stop. I should have known Emily wasn't done. The guilt trip didn't work, and the courts weren't on her side. So, she did what desperate people do, she played dirty. It started with a phone call from my lawyer. You're not going to like this, he said. I sighed, already bracing myself. What now? She's accusing you of parental alienation. I let out a humorless laugh. Of course she is. She's claiming you're poisoning the kids against her, refusing to cooperate with visitation, and manipulating them into cutting her out of their lives. I rubbed a hand down my face. That's bullshit, and she knows it. I know. You know. But the court still has to investigate it. I clenched my jaw. What does that mean for me? It means they'll likely assign a family evaluator, a court-appointed psychologist who will interview you, the kids, and possibly even Emily to determine if there's any validity to her claims. I exhaled. Fine. Let them investigate. I have nothing to hide. Good, my lawyer said. But be careful. This is her last attempt to regain control. She's going to push hard. I was ready. Or at least, I thought I was. The boys were officially interviewed a week later. I kept my distance, not wanting to influence them, but I made sure they knew they could be honest. Ethan went first. When he came back, he barely looked fazed. That was a joke, he muttered. I straight up told them I don't want anything to do with her. They asked me if you talk badly about Mom, and I told them the only thing you ever did was tell the truth. I nodded, grateful. Thanks, bud. Ryan, though. Ryan was different. He walked into the interview looking conflicted. And when he came back, he looked worse. I knew something was wrong the second he stepped inside. His face was pale, his shoulders tense. He wouldn't even look at me. Julie noticed too. Ryan? I'm fine, he muttered. But he wasn't. Later that night, I found him sitting in the living room, staring at his phone. I sat beside him. You want to talk about it? Ryan sighed. Mom, she told them you don't let me see her. I clenched my jaw. And what did you say? He hesitated. I told them I didn't know. I exhaled. Ryan, you do know. Have I ever stopped you from seeing her? He shook his head. No, but, she made it sound like it's your fault. Like if you weren't so angry, everything would be fine. I closed my eyes for a second, willing myself to stay calm. Ryan, I said carefully, this isn't about me being angry. This is about the choices she made. And now she's trying to make you responsible for fixing them. Ryan swallowed hard. I don't know what to believe anymore. I reached over and squeezed his shoulder. Believe what you feel. Not what she tells you to feel. Ryan nodded, but I could tell he was still struggling. Emily's last move had worked, at least, a little. She had planted doubt. And now, I had to make sure it didn't grow. Emily's little stunt with the court evaluation had done its damage. Ryan was pulling away, not completely, but enough for me to notice. He was quiet, lost in his own thoughts, always hesitant when Emily came up in conversation. I knew what was happening. She had gotten into his head. I let it go for a while, hoping he'd work through it on his own. But then, a week after his evaluation, he did something that made my stomach drop. He asked to see her. I wasn't surprised, but it still hurt. Ethan scoffed when he heard. Seriously, Ryan? After everything? Ryan crossed his arms. She's still my mom. Ethan rolled his eyes. Yeah, and she still blew up our family, but go ahead and pretend that didn't happen. Ryan's face turned red. I'm not pretending anything. He stopped, looking at me. Dad, you said it was my choice. I nodded slowly. I did. And it still is. Ryan swallowed. Then. I want to see her. Ethan muttered something under his breath and walked out. Julie just shook her head, arms crossed. Ryan looked at me, waiting. I exhaled. All right. But I have one condition. His brow furrowed. What? She meets me first. Ryan hesitated. Why? Because I need to know where her head is. I need to make sure she's not going to use you to push her agenda. Ryan sighed. Fine. We met at a coffee shop the next day. Emily looked different, more put together than the last time I saw her, like she was trying to prove something. She smiled when I walked in, like this was just another normal day. I sat down, staring at her. Let's skip the small talk. What do you want? Her smile faltered. Matt, come on. Do we have to do this? Yes. She sighed, stirring her coffee. Ryan wants to see me. I nodded. And I'm not stopping him. She bit her lip. Then why are we here? I leaned forward. Because I need to know exactly what you plan to say to him. No guilt trips. No manipulating him into thinking this is my fault. You tell him the truth, your truth. Emily flinched. I never lied to him. I laughed. No. Then why is he so confused? She looked away, her fingers tightening around her cup. Because this isn't black and white, Matt. I shook my head. It is. You cheated. You lied. You lost. Those are the facts. Emily's jaw clenched. I made a mistake. No, you made choices. She inhaled sharply, looking like she wanted to argue. But then she let out a breath and slumped back in her chair. I don't want to lose him, she whispered. I studied her. Then stop making him choose. Silence. Finally, she nodded. Okay. I didn't know if I believed her, but it was the closest thing to an apology I was ever going to get. I stood up. You can see him this weekend. But if I hear even one word about you blaming me for your mistakes, I will cut this off. She swallowed hard. Understood. I walked away without another word. And for the first time, I felt like I was the one in control. Ryan saw Emily that weekend. I dropped him off at the visitation center and watched as he hesitated outside the door. He looked back at me, his expression unreadable. "You sure about this?" I asked. Ryan nodded, though I could tell he wasn't as sure as he wanted to be. "Yeah." I exhaled. "All right. Call me when you're done." And with that, he went inside. I drove off but didn't go far. Instead, I parked a few blocks away, waiting. Not because I didn't trust Ryan, but because I didn't trust her. 2 hours later, he called. I picked up instantly. "Hey. Can you come get me?" His voice sounded off. "On my way." Ryan was quiet the whole ride home. Julie and Ethan were waiting when we walked inside. Julie raised an eyebrow. "Well?" Ryan sat down on the couch, rubbing his hands together. "She was different." Ethan scoffed. "Oh, so now she's changed?" Ryan shook his head. "No, not like that. I mean, she was trying too hard. Like, she kept saying how much she missed me, how much she regrets everything, how she just wants things to go back to normal." Julie folded her arms. "And you believed her?" Ryan frowned. "I don't know." I sat across from him. "Did she try to blame me?" Ryan hesitated. "Not exactly. She didn't say it outright, but she kept saying stuff like, 'I just wish your dad and I could talk,' and 'I don't want this to be a battle.' Like she was trying to act like you're the one making this harder." Julie rolled her eyes. "Classic manipulation." Ryan looked down. "I guess." Ethan leaned forward. "Ryan. You don't owe her anything." Ryan exhaled. "I know. It's just. I wanted to believe she could fix this." I nodded, my voice calm. "Some things can't be fixed." Ryan swallowed hard. "Yeah. I get that now." And in that moment, I saw it, the realization sinking in. The last piece of hope he had been clinging to finally slipping away. He wasn't angry. He wasn't even sad. He was just done. Just like I was. That was the moment Ryan let go. After that visit, he didn't ask to see Emily again. He didn't cry about it. He didn't fight with Ethan or Julie over whether she deserved another chance. He just accepted it. And that was the moment I let go, too. The divorce was finalized a few months later. Emily fought it at first, dragging her feet, trying to negotiate, throwing around empty threats about fighting for full custody. But in the end, she had no leverage. The court ruled in my favor. Primary custody stayed with me. Ethan refused visitation entirely, and Ryan was given the choice to see her whenever he wanted. Emily didn't like it, but she had no choice. She lost. Michael was long gone by then. After his own divorce wrecked him financially, he spiraled. I didn't keep tabs, but Louise told me he tried reaching out to Emily a few times. She ignored him. She wasn't looking for a man. She was looking for control. And now, she had none. One night, months after everything settled, I got a text from Louise. "Louise, want to grab dinner sometime? Just two people who survived the same storm." I stared at my phone for a long time before typing back. "Me, yeah. I'd like that." Julie saw me smiling at my screen and smirked. "Dad, are you dating?" Ethan looked up from his game. "Oh, hell no." I chuckled. "It's just dinner." Julie grinned. "Aha. Sure." Ryan just shook his head with a small smile. "It's about time." I exhaled, leaning back in my chair. For the first time in years, I felt at peace. I had my kids. I had my freedom. And for the first time, I had a future that wasn't tied to Emily's mistakes. I didn't know what was ahead. But for the first time in a long time, I was ready for it.